and welcome to our seventh, I believe it is our seventh edition of Third Eye Sister Souls podcast. And I am here, Monique Brunette, and my co-host,
Aurora. And by the way, I have lost track of the episodes. I don't know what number
I think
we're
it's
on
number 7, and don't forget we have our Facebook page now, Third Eye Sister
right.
Souls podcast and more. So feel free if you have a story you want to share, or if you've come across something that you think would be very interesting with the UFOs or the paranormal, and that, feel free to put them on there. And by the way, I'm thinking that coming up soon, I'm going to start to share, because we've done a lot on ETs. I'm going to share some of my paranormal experiences.
Awesome. My radios just started chirping as you said that. So I think
wow.
Whoever's here with us is in agreement. The ghosts are saying, sure.
Yeah.
Oh, man. Yeah. Well, today I am going to probably do a lot of the talking, because I'm going to share some experiences that I have had with mantis beings. And, when I sit down to make a list, make a list of what I wanted to say, I realized that I have more experiences with mantis beings than any other ET race, I guess you could call it.
Isn't that funny?
Many different individuals.
Isn't that funny? Because it's funny, because like me, I think mine are more to do with the grays and the like those orange ebens and things like that.
Yeah.
Isn't that funny?
Yeah.
And then I think Araloo gets Pleiadians a lot. So
That's true. I think it's pretty interesting. I'm just going to put my notebook over here in front of me in case I lose my train of thought. It seems like people who have contact, they have contact with a variety of different individuals, but there seems to be one particular race that they have more contact with than others. Like, you get to know more individuals from that particular race.
Correct.
And,
Correct.
In my case, I have had a couple of people tell me that, I am part of the mantis family. So
that's cool.
And
that's super cool.
That resonates with me. And in fact, the very first experience that I had involving ETs.
Oh. Whoa, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
And I
That's
put
better.
my phone on silent. I apologize.
That's okay.
But I'm thinking I better do it, because if I don't, I'm going to get everybody and their grandmother is going to decide, why don't I call Monique, or why don't I, this is a great time to call her. That will be my luck, and I don't want that to happen.
Gotcha. Yeah,
I apologize here. I'm just fixing it real quick. So that way then.
You keep turning.
Is it really? Okay. I'm sorry.
That's okay. I think as you're turning your phone, it just sort of does the whatever the portrait.
Did the spaceship turn?
You know what? I didn't notice. I think so.
And I am going to lock my door.
Oh, perfect. That's a good idea.
Yeah.
That's a good idea. Well, there's always
don't want everybody barging in.
Yeah, I mean, there's stuff going on in the background. My husband's he wants to vacuum right now of all times, so I close my door. I can't hear anything. But it's real life. It's it's happening.
That's it.
Yeah. I mean, I wish I was here in this background of mine. Orbiting
me too.
some
I wish I was
somewhere.
in a spaceship.
I know. Yes, there you go. I wish I was on your spaceship. Anyway, like I was saying, the very first experience that I had with ETs, I eventually realized that it was a mantis being that was involved. And this happened in 2020 after I came back home from a pretty intense meditation retreat. It was, during COVID.
So this was before COVID?
No, this is during COVID. It was the summer of 2020. Yeah, it was August.
Wow.
I remember that. Yeah. So this experience happened in September of 2020. It was just a few weeks after I came back home. And, I'm lying in bed and I'm meditating because I always do that before I fall asleep. My husband's next to me and he's already asleep. And then all of a sudden, while I have my eyes closed, this real vivid image pops in my mind's eye. And
Wow.
yeah, I mean, it's like I'm lying down in bed, and next to me on my left side, there are a couple of little grays, the 3 foot tall robotic guys that, people describe with
Yeah.
these dark blue uniforms on, and the collar, I don't remember, it seems like a lighter color for the collar. It was almost like a little turtleneck thingy. And so I have 2 of them over here, and I have another one over by my feet. And they have some tools or something, and they're doing stuff to me. And I wasn't feeling any pain, but I could feel the pressure. Like when you go to the dentist and they numb your face, but you
Yes.
still feel certain things, I mean, you don't feel any pain, but you still feel them,
The pressure.
doing stuff, right? And so that was a little freaky. And then when I looked to my to my right, there was this taller, it looked like a gray to me, dressed in the same exact uniform in the dark blue with this,
Wow.
this collar, with these humongous eyes and this huge triangular head. And I couldn't move. I was paralyzed. And,
Wow.
he was like,
Triangular head.
yeah, that's what it looked like a really triangular, wide and very tiny chin, very pointy chin.
Huh.
It was interesting. So I'm like, holy cow. And I opened my eyes thinking that, it's just a dream. Well, the image didn't go away. And so the image that I saw when my eyes were closed and my bedroom overlapped. It was like one on top of the other simultaneously. And I couldn't move. I was paralyzed. And this guy over here, the tall one, was leaning over me. And
Yep.
telepathically, he was telling me, we're not trying to hurt you. He was very compassionate. I could feel his compassion. But it freaked me out because his emotions didn't match his expression on his face.
Yeah.
He had no expression. It was just like this humongous
They
head.
don't.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
was so, oh my gosh, I was
I
terrified.
get it all the time with my sleep paralysis. And you're
Oh,
right.
man.
It does that. The room,
Yeah.
like I can see my bedroom, but there's like another, I don't know what you want to call it, router, whatever.
Yeah,
that
it feels
is
like another reality.
like they're blending or something.
Yeah,
Like or
yes.
mix, like merging.
Exactly. That's
Because
exactly what it was like. And, I was really terrified. I was really, really terrified. And I'm not exactly sure what was going on. I think at one point I said that I don't care what you're doing to me, I just don't want to know about it. Because I had this suspicion that they weren't, this guy was telling me they weren't going to hurt me, and I wasn't feeling any pain, and I didn't get any sort of, evil or a malevolent vibe from anybody. The little robots were creepy because they were very task oriented. I mean, to them, it would not have mattered. Whatever I did, whatever I said, they were going to stick to their job. They weren't going to
Yeah.
stop. So, just like not having control, it really, really freaked me out. So that's when I told them, you know what, I don't care what you're doing, I don't want to know about it. And when I said that, this image with the grays and this guy standing next to me started fading away, sort of like pulling out. And my bedroom started to be more noticeable. And as this image was fading away, my terror was diminishing. And I thought, well,
Right.
maybe I can handle this. So it started coming back up, and I'm like, no way, forget it. I can't do it. I cannot do it.
Yeah.
And, it went away. But as soon as the image faded away completely, my window is right across from my bed, and we had the shades were drawn, so I couldn't see what was going on outside. But there were these lights right outside my window that were blinking. And they
Yeah.
were, you know what? It looked like an emergency vehicle lights that were blinking with the blue and the white. They also had green lights, which is kind of what led me to
I've
believe
seen the
that,
green.
it's maybe not because I know emergency vehicles don't have green lights on them. And
I'm glad you brought that up, though,
yeah,
about the green lights, because I had talked with some other, I'm not going to say names,
yeah,
but ET UFO people, and they dismissed, and these are people are kind of
Yeah.
higher up. Oh, no, no. It has to be blue. Green, no. And I
Interesting.
find that a crock of crap.
Oh, for
because
sure. Yeah, I
because
know.
my experiences are not always the, in fact, I mostly a lot usually will see the green colored night, not the blue.
Really
Yeah, and
interesting.
so find that interesting that you said about the tall and the you said tall and short.
Yeah.
Uh,
In fact, I have
because when they
a drawing.
come for
Let me
me,
see.
I always see the taller one and a short, like a tall gray and a short gray, and they're both like right butted against
Right
my
next to you.
bed,
Yeah.
right next to me, and
Um,
they're looking down at me like that.
yeah, I actually
So,
did a drawing of
yes, their
him.
eyes are big,
Oopsie, hang on. I think I just pushed the wrong button. I am
big.
so tired that, like I said, I can't think
They
straight.
do have these big black eyes, though.
There we go. Okay, so ignore. Yeah. And so there's these windows, these lights right outside my window. And we live on the second floor. We live in a condo, a tall condo. We're on the second floor. And these lights were like right at my window. The street
Wow.
was down
Yeah.
below. So if it was an emergency vehicle, it would have been a very tall emergency vehicle because, okay. And so I turn to my husband and I say, "Hey, Chris, we have some weird lights outside our window." And as soon as I finished that phrase, they stopped. Now, it
Right.
was dead silence. There were no trucks, there were no cars in the street. I mean, this was, pretty late in the day. At night we were going to bed. So I got up and I looked out the window, and there were no emergency vehicles in the street. There was nothing going on. So I thought that was pretty interesting. And this was my very first experience, and I had no concept of mantis beings or any other sort of ETs that, all I knew was just, the gray with the big eyes. That was it. I didn't have
Wow.
any frame of reference for anything else. But when I drew this picture of this is the guy who was standing by my bedside, the guy who was communicating with me telepathically. The weird thing about it was that he had his arms folded like that.
Wow.
And
That's interesting.
yeah, I could tell that
I'm just
his,
gonna turn my fan off. I forgot it was on, and that'll be a lot of noise in the background.
yeah, oh, that's okay.
So
So his
sorry.
arms, that's all right. His arms were folded in the way that I did in the drawing. And again, I had not seen mantis beings or even had a frame of reference for that. And so it was interesting that he came out that way.
Right.
Later on, I drew another picture of him, and I really tried to get in touch with not necessarily my subconscious. Let me see, where is that one? I guess I tried to get in touch with my subconscious, and just sort of let the pen just kind of flow on the paper.
That's
And
just
so,
I'm just blown of the way you draw these beings is just mind blowing. And
yeah, this
these
was a couple
images
years
you
later.
get.
Yeah, this was a couple of years later because I was just absolutely fascinated by that experience. It really blew my mind. And this is what I came up with. Now, by this point, like I said, a couple of years had passed. I started to be, more aware and have, I expanded my frame of reference, and I knew about mantis beings. So that's what I was able to draw. It was these humongous eyes and the triangular face, with the pointy chin. So at this point, I'm like, that's really creepy. But I kept an open mind about what was going on. Let's see. I'm looking at my notes here because I actually put them in order. So this was my first experience with the mantis being. Later on, a couple of years
That's
go
pretty
by.
incredible.
It really is pretty amazing. I mean, I looked at it, I'm like, holy cow, I can't believe I actually drew that. A few years later, after I went to a friend's house for a CE5, after I came home, I started drawing things like that were looking amazing because I never really had any drawing skills. And when I came back home after the CE5, I had this urge to draw ETs, to start drawing ETs. And what happened was I drew a couple of other ETs before I drew this one. But and I think I've shared this one before. Can you see it on your screen? Probably not.
Not at the moment. And
All
sorry, I
right,
keep
that's
muting
okay.
myself, but we had somebody come up and the dog is just bark, bark,
Oh,
bark, 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 and it's loud.
that's all right.
It's
That's
like I
okay.
shut off the fan to cut the noise out and then the dog starts.
Well,
I love that.
stuff happens. This one, this was like
Beautiful.
the second mantis that I drew. And the really interesting thing about it was that I thought I was just drawing something for myself out of my own imagination or my own frame of reference. And as I'm drawing this, I'm starting to get
Incredible.
messages from this drawing, this being I'm drawing, for
Unbelievable.
somebody that I had just met at the CE5 the day before. I mean, I didn't know this guy. The only reason I had his phone number is because he shared a picture of a UFO that, I asked him to send me. And so I'm getting messages for this specific person, and I'm like, what is going on? It was really strange. And I decided, you know what? This guy doesn't know me. He probably thinks I'm nuts. So I opened with, I know we don't know each other, and you'll probably think I'm nuts, but I'm getting these messages from this being that I'm drawing for you. And as I was drawing this, I was sending him these messages as they were coming through, and he was telling me how they resonated with him. This mantis being
That's amazing.
is a plant medicine teacher. And this friend was into plant medicine. He was exploring it, he was researching. And so when this guy showed up, it blew his mind because that was what he was interested in. And I didn't know about that when I met him the night before. So, in any case, I finished the picture, I sent it to him, and a few months after, he went to somebody who read his Akashic records. And all the information that I gave him, the person who did the reading for him confirmed it all. And he texted me back and he said, "You're not going to believe this, but all the information that you sent me is like totally, somebody else told me the same exact thing." So anyway, this was actually my second experience with the mantis being. Most of the experiences that I've had, to
That's
be
pretty
honest,
wild.
yeah, they happen when I'm at a meditation center. And I think it's because my mind is more quiet, and I'm more relaxed and I'm more focused, and the whole atmosphere is just a lot more quiet. The most intense one that I had, and at the time I didn't know who this mantis was. I was in my meditation cell, and at some point a few years before that, I started having panic attacks during meditation. I didn't have them in my daily life, but I had them during meditation. It was just, stuff coming up. And so I'm in my meditation cell and I can feel the fear, the terror, the panic starting to rise. And I'm thinking, oh, I should probably get up and go for a little walk because, it's not good to, get overwhelmed. And I have been overwhelmed by terror before while I'm meditating, and it's not fun. So I'm thinking I'm going to get up and go for a little walk. And as soon as I said that, this mantis showed up and said, "I gotcha." As if, I could feel myself kind of falling off the cliff into the depth of terror, is what it felt like to me. And he caught me. And as soon as he said that, the fear that I was feeling from the panic that was starting to rise, as well as this image that just popped in my head of this big insect, that fear immediately turned to unconditional, compassionate love. It blew my mind. It was like he flipped the switch. And the more afraid I was, the more intense these positive emotions. And ever since then, I don't have panic attacks when I meditate anymore.
Well, that's interesting that you bring that up because I think too that this is how, like you have said to me too, if they're a negative being, they are going to feed on that fear and they want to bring on the panic and that's a good way to know, because if they're a positive light being in that, then they're going to try to do what they can to make you feel more at ease. And
they care about you, and so they communicate that telepathically.
right. And I feel like like what happened with me with the incident with the orange evens and that, I wasn't, it was only when I couldn't breathe. But then
Yeah.
it was like when I really started praying and everything, then it changed. You know
Right.
what I mean? Like it wasn't instantly, but they started to, it,
Yeah.
the air started to go back to normal.
They were
So if they
considerate.
were, if they were dark
Yeah. Oh,
and
for
then
sure.
it would have, maybe I would have passed out. I don't know.
Yeah, it wouldn't have mattered. So
Right. It would not have mattered.
that's a really good point. Whenever we have an encounter, if we say no, what happens next? Do they respect
Exactly.
your, sense of personal sovereignty, or do they just don't care and take over? So,
Right.
yeah, that's actually a
And
really good thing to
sometimes
pay attention to.
I think that too, and this is why I think it's important. Like if you're going to do like say a meditation and you want to connect with ETs and all that, your good ETs and stuff like
Yeah.
that, be prepared that some of the stuff I know when I've been writing my book, things are going to come up that maybe aren't resolved in your life. So you might have some anxiety or that, but I totally
Yeah.
think that they're still surrounding you with that compassion and love. But you might have some things that are going to feel a little, you know,
Right, right. We can feel afraid even though there may be absolutely nothing to be afraid of. And like you
correct.
said, it's got to do with our conditioning, it's got to do with our past experiences and so on. So yeah, that's another thing that's really important. Just like I was afraid, but there really was nothing to be afraid of.
Great
These
job.
grays
Yeah.
were not harming me, and I know that they weren't because as soon as I said I don't want to know about it, they just drifted off. They respected my wishes. And when I said,
Right.
oh, I can handle it, they started coming back. So they did exactly, what I wanted to experience. So, yeah, it took me a while to really process what had happened with that whole experience. And I'm still not 100% clear about it. But
Right.
one other time when I was at the meditation center, I was taking a course. There was one day when I felt like somebody downloaded all of the contents of their computer into my head, and it was just symbols. Okay, overwhelming. It went on for an hour. It was just
That's
symbols,
amazing.
and the symbols, I tried to draw them, but I couldn't because it seemed like they weren't static, like they were changing somehow, but they reminded me of like Chinese or Japanese script.
Amazing.
Yeah, that's kind of what they look like. And then after that, when I went back home, I remembered how that I could move things with my mind. It was just
That's pretty incredible.
yes, it totally freaked me out. They call it a psi wheel where you take like a pin and you poke it through a stand so the pin stands up with the sharp tip at the top, and then you just take a little piece of aluminum foil and you fold it and you just kind of put it on there, and I was able to spin it,
Wow.
and I can
Yeah, I'm
spin
pretty
it.
sure I can't do that.
It's like I can't believe I'm doing this because now I can spin it
That's
even though
amazing.
it's under a glass jar. So I'm not touching it. Nobody's breathing on it. There's no AC blowing on it. It's like completely on its own. So that was pretty trippy.
Yeah,
And
that's not my talent. Not my
well,
gift.
the thing is, with that information came this idea that, this is not a parlor trick. It's not like you go to a cocktail party and you show your friends what you do, brag about it. It was about learning how to manipulate energy for the purpose of healing.
Exactly.
And I
See, and
had,
I've never felt that I'm a healer. I
yeah,
mean, to be honest, I don't think I have that. I mean, we all have, but it's not a specialty. I know that, because I
yeah.
think that we all have gifts that
Hmm.
are our specialties, and mine, I know it's never been in healing. I might have some a little bit, just like I think we all have like a
Yeah,
little bit,
yeah.
but it's which are your specialties and which aren't. And by the way, I want to tell you that with the symbols, and you're telling me that mine are Egyptian, so there you go. And then I
Interesting.
had all that thing happen with
Interesting. Wow. That's pretty trippy. Did anything happen to you after you got those symbols? Like, did you notice anything different?
the very first time was when I didn't know anything about any of this. And I was just very first starting to go to a meditation group, and I
So
was
during
seeing the Egyptian
meditation,
symbols, and yeah.
interesting.
And I thought maybe it was because I was seeing hieroglyphics and everything. I thought it was for somebody else
Oh,
in the
wow.
group because I didn't
Yeah,
know,
why
you
would you
know?
see that? Yeah.
Yeah.
That's fascinating. Wow. It's interesting that these things happen during meditation. I've had a lot of experiences with these mantis being during meditation. Most recently, when I was at the meditation center last summer, during one of the meditations, this mantis being Chica, I'm going to show a drawing of him here in a minute.
Chica!
Chica, yeah, he's from the Council of Eight. He popped into my mind. And, eventually I realized that the mantis who said, I got you, that was also Chica. As soon as, I started to understand who he was, I realized that he had been present in my life a lot of
You're
times.
totally connected to Chica.
Yeah.
I feel that. And by the way, I didn't mention this in our last podcast, and you were like to me, why didn't you say? Because I told Aurora after, I got the feeling of Chica. I had
That's
just
right.
in my mind's eye was standing behind me and had put his
Hands, I guess.
yeah, type of hands on my shoulders. Because at first I was trying to figure out. I was like,
And we were talking about him at the time.
yeah,
Yeah.
and I got the sense of these hands, but I didn't know what. I was like, are those human hands? And I was like, no, wait a minute, those aren't human. And then I saw this robed, hooded figure, and then I realized when I was like, I was trying to see, and I was like, that's Chica.
Yeah, I know.
Chica.
It's really.
And that was me after me saying, oh, I don't,
Right.
the praying mantis don't come around me.
Really? Let me show you. Oh, that's too cool. That is too cool. Well,
So I just wanted to tell you that real quick.
Well, actually, that's a good segue into the story that I was saying because, I hadn't seen Chica in a while and I thought maybe that was it. We were done. But he showed up during meditation, with his big head and with a big smile and just to say hello. He didn't have any specific messages, just coming by. And after that meditation period, when I walked back to my room, outside my door was this praying mantis. And I took a picture of it. It blew my mind because I realized that was Chica. I had never seen a praying mantis in the wild before, ever. And this course that I took was in Georgia. And I looked it up, and I guess they're fairly common in Georgia. The trip.
I'm going there tomorrow.
That's right. That's right.
Atlanta.
Yeah. This guy was about the size of my hand. And he was just sitting there.
Wow.
Yeah. I took a few pictures of him, and he turned his head and he looked at me like that. And I started to cry because the synchronicity of that just really, really blew my mind. It's like, oh,
That's
he
beautiful.
still loves me. He showed up. Yeah. I thought that was really, really pretty cool. That was really cool. Let's see. Those are just some of the experiences that I've had with mantis beings during meditation. But I have also had, actually, there's one more that I want to bring up. And this one is, it's an interesting story. Again, it happened while I was meditating. Let me put a picture up of this guy that I'm going to be talking about. I was meditating at home, so this was not at the meditation center. And somehow,
That's interesting.
I don't know how, I ended up on a ship with insectoids. I'm meditating at home, and it's like, I don't know, I astral traveled. I'm not sure how I ended up there, but I was in this room. It reminded me of an old submarine, okay, with that military color. Yeah, and there were all these panels on the walls, and there were these little insects. Well, they weren't little, 3 to 4 foot tall, standing on their back legs, manipulating these
That would freak me
dials
out.
and things. Now, I wasn't afraid, which is really interesting. All
No,
I could
I'm
feel was this compassionate love towards them.
nice.
Oh my gosh. Somehow, I think they have a hive mind. They must, because they all turned around at the same time and looked at me with this surprise, like, what are you doing here? And who are you? And how did you get here? Kind of thing. And then they swarmed me from all directions with the little antennas and the little legs. It was like being swarmed by a bunch of kindergartners, okay? Because they were short. And, you know, they were sticky. You know how kids are sticky when they're that age? No matter how often they wash their hands, they're sticky.
Yes.
You know, boogers, saliva, whatever. They're always sticky with something,
yeah.
with, you know, food. And so they're like, you know, basically just touching me with their antennas and their limbs. And they did that for a few seconds. I guess they must have decided that I wasn't a threat. And they all turned around at the same time and they went back to their stations and ignored me. Well,
that's weird.
Yeah, I was like, holy cow, what's going on? The
like welcome you and then like, okay.
Oh, it wasn't even a welcoming. It was like, she's not a threat. We don't care. Whatever.
That's wild.
Yeah. A second later, this guy came in.
That's amazing.
Oh my gosh. The little insects
he looks very dominant.
Oh my goodness, yeah. They somehow communicated to me that this is the general. He didn't introduce himself. I was not worth being for him to introduce himself to me. Is the message?
He looks like a head honcho to me.
Yeah. So this is the general, and it was so detailed, Monique. I could see the door. It was like a round submarine door, you know, with the wheel in the center that you lock it.
Yeah.
The yellow paint on this wheel was chipping. I could see the metal underneath. The detail was incredible.
Holy cow.
Yeah, I could see the colors. I could see, it was just really, really detailed. I don't know how else to say it. Anyhow, this guy comes in and he's got on this robe that's covering his whole body except for his head. And it's gray, like a military gray, a dark green military gray. And he comes up to me and he looks at me and he's like, you're not supposed to be here. You're not supposed to be able to do this. How did you get here? Because I was a human. He recognized me as a human. And as a human, I should not have been able to do that. I should not have been able to travel in the way that I did and end up on his ship. And this guy, my gosh, incredible psychic abilities, because he went into my mind and went through it like it was a file cabinet. And there was nothing.
He probably wanted to make sure you weren't a threat either.
Oh, yeah. It was that. And he was perplexed as to, why are you here? How did this happen? Because the information that he had was contradicting the fact that I was there. And I'll tell you in a minute what that was. But as he's going through my mind, again, I'm not afraid. This guy is invading my most personal spaces, okay? And what was
to go through your mind, that's as personal as it gets.
You know, the thing that was really weird is that all he found were positive things about humanity. I didn't have anything in my head about war. It was all about people who were kind and all of that. And at one point I told him, I don't know why I said that, I told him, this is who you would be destroying, is what I said to him. But anyway,
I'm glad he didn't go through my mind. He would have probably caught me cussing the other driver out that cut me off on the road. And
I do that too. Let me tell you, there was none of that in my head.
Well, that's good.
He slowed down. I don't know if you're familiar with the movie Ender's Game. It's about this teenager.
I've heard of it.
Yeah, these teenagers, they are trained, supposedly on some video game. But it turns out to be a reality, and they are manipulated into destroying this race of insectoids. And the young man who was in charge...
I gotta see that.
Yeah, it's really good. Ender's Game. It's a really, really good movie. The boy who was in charge, the young man who was in charge of this whole operation, was so devastated when he realized what they had done unintentionally, that he took it upon himself to seek out whoever was left from this race and try to help him, to recover. And at the very end of the movie, there's this scene where he is face to face with the queen, and there's nobody else there. It's destroyed. Everything is gone. She's the only one left, and she takes, I guess, one of her limbs, and it's, a pin. It's like sharp, and she puts it to his neck, like, I'm about to kill you because of what you did to my. And she doesn't. But this particular scene, he played it in my mind, forwards and backwards. Slower, faster. He was really focused on that boy and what his motivation was and what he was doing. And it was like, that was it. That's really all he needed. And the idea that I got from him was that they were a mercenary group that had been hired by some entities who were planning an invasion of the planet Earth. And
Wow.
they had told him that humans are barbaric, they are hopeless, they will never change, and the universe would be better off without them.
Man.
And
Yeah.
so meeting me as a human, it was like totally contradicted what he had been told about humans. And so, yeah.
Just like how we do that with, their species or
Yep.
grays or
Like,
whatever,
all Dracos
is
are
that
bad. Yeah.
attack first and,
Ask questions later. Yeah.
ask questions later. Like, we're the ones who are pretty, aggressive and
Yeah. Yeah, we are.
that
We
kind of
are.
thing. So
Now,
I can understand why there's a lot of ETs that are like,
yeah.
back off,
Well,
with us.
I realized at that moment that the only reason he found positive things in my head is because that's what he was looking for. He was looking for
Good.
information that he didn't already have. And so when he
That's
came
good.
across all of these positive things, he was a little confused, and he dismissed me with, this is not your timeline anyway. Why do you care about destroying the planet? And so after that, I came back to my meditation room, and I'm like, holy cow, I can't believe that just
Well,
happened.
maybe he will go back with a little learning of his own, because I do
Yeah.
believe that, people assume that we're the only ones that have things to learn and these ETs wouldn't, but I don't think that, because I don't care how advanced you are in
Yeah.
that doesn't mean that you can have the wrong kind of mindset,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah,
So that's what
definitely.
I believe anyways.
Well, he came back, actually, by himself in my head. It was a telepathic thing, and he was pissed. Not with me,
Mm,
not with me, but whoever he had made the deal with, they had lied to him. So I
right.
think what he did is after he met me, he probably did a little bit more research on his own to really find out what's going on, because I was just one individual. And he was really, really ticked off. I would not want this guy to be mad at me. The whole
No,
idea of him being
I
mad,
can just looking at
oh my
him.
gosh. And see, the interesting thing about him, all my other drawings of mantis beings, their face is wider.
Uh, yeah,
Okay, well,
friendly.
he looked
Yeah.
more like a grasshopper. And
Yes.
I don't know what that is around his mouth. I couldn't tell. As I'm saying, oh, was so detailed. He had something in the lower part of his mouth. He had the mandibles, but they were covering whatever this grill is. I'm not sure what it was. Maybe it was a breathing thing. I have no idea.
I thought I was getting the sense of it was some kind of mask thing, covering thing for protecting
Yeah, yeah,
something.
yeah. It was definitely, it had a purpose, and it was
Yes.
for an important purpose, whatever that purpose was. Perhaps I didn't have a good frame of reference for it, or maybe he just didn't want to share. Um,
There's a sensory thing I feel
it could be,
on
yeah,
his chin, you know,
yeah,
and that. So I
yeah.
don't know. That's just what I'm.
Right, right. Well, I was surprised to see that there are a variety of different looking mantis beings. Because, like I said, he looked more like a grasshopper, but I recognized him as soon as he walked in the door, that he was
Well, it
a
only makes
mantis.
sense.
Now,
I mean, when you have the grays, you have branches off from the grays, like I said about the orange evens
right,
and that, whose
right,
eyes are red. And
yeah.
so, yeah,
Um,
I could see that.
there's one thing I forgot to mention is when he walked in the door, and like I said, it reminded me of a submarine. So you've got this round door, and you have to step over this wall. You know, it's like it's elevated. You have to step over this, whatever that is, a metal that separates the two rooms. And in that moment, I thought to myself, I hope he doesn't fall down or doesn't trip, because he doesn't look like he could laugh at himself. And he heard me.
Oh,
And he gave me the dirtiest of looks, and I was like, oops, I'm sorry.
uh-oh.
But again, this whole time, like I said, I was not afraid. And he explained, like I said, this was just telepathic ideas that he communicated with me. When he came back and told me he was pissed, he sort of divulged the plan that somehow I already knew, which is why I told him this is who you would be destroying, that they were planning an invasion. You know, somebody had hired them to pretty much take out all of humanity, clean off the planet for somebody else to take over.
Oh,
The fact
yeah.
that he told me it wasn't my timeline was also interesting. You know, why do I
Yes.
care? It's not my timeline anyway. So I don't know. I'm looking forward to, kind of finding out a little bit
Maybe he
more.
thought you were from the future,
Oh,
you know.
maybe. That's interesting. I never considered that. That is interesting. Yeah, the thing that surprised me about that room that I was in is everything was analog. I mean, there were these gauges with the little red dial or whatever moving back and forth. It was that. There were buttons, there were knobs. It was not, it didn't
So
seem to me like advanced technology.
now, see, that's the funny thing about it is we assume anything ET,
Hmm.
they're going to be so far more advanced than us, but not necessarily. I think you can have ones who, and it doesn't mean it's.
Oh gosh, I know why. Holy, I know why. Okay.
Go
At
ahead.
first, I thought I was on a spaceship. Okay, I thought we were somewhere out in space, and I'm confused as to why does it look like a old World War II submarine with peeling paint on it. And just now it dawned on me, it was a submarine. They actually are here, or were here, I can't tell anymore at this point because I'm not connecting with him right this minute, in the ocean. So they were on our planet.
Wow.
And the reason they had this beat up submarine is because they were trying to blend in and not attract any attention to themselves.
Wow. Yes, yes. And a lot of these beings, too, are in our oceans.
Yeah. Oh, I know. I know. I didn't know that at the time. Since then I've find out that, they are here. But when this happened, I didn't have that concept. I didn't know that that was even possible. And so it was a very, very interesting experience. Memorable, that's for sure. And I have a feeling that the story isn't over. One of his subordinates later on came and visited me again during meditation, and he told me to share this story. And so I drew the image. It's not done yet because normally I put stuff around and, I color him. So this is just the basic sketch, and I haven't finished it yet. And I started to work on writing the story up. But it was like, I'm never going to finish this because it's taking forever. So the fact that I'm talking about this right now, I have fulfilled, I guess, his request for me to share this story. And I don't know why it's significant to share. He didn't tell me why, but I feel like I had to, so I did.
Chris, there you go.
It's a really, really
I'm
trippy story.
so glad you're sharing all this because I think this is just
really, really
totally
trippy. Yeah.
incredible.
Now, as serious and standoffish this guy was, Chica is the exact opposite. The exact opposite.
Yes.
Chica has come, and let me put up a picture of Chica. Hang on just a second.
He's so lighthearted and
Oh yeah, Yeah,
His energy is fun loving energy.
it
Like I
is.
said, Chico's the first one I actually introduced himself to from the Council of Eight to me.
Yeah,
He was the first one that came through.
yeah.
Hmm.
Here, this is the
Yes,
first
Chico.
sketch I did of him. Um, and I didn't know who he was at the time when I met him. I was watering my flowers on my balcony, okay, and all of a sudden, in my mind's eye, there's these huge. It looked exactly like that, except the mandibles were open, like he was going to bite me. But in fact, he was smiling, okay? And when he popped in my mind, again, this overpowering feeling of love and compassion and everything. And I know I wasn't making it up because I would never connect that image with such a pleasant emotion, okay?
I have to laugh when you said that though,
Why is
because
that?
it makes me think of my experiences with Sobek and that
Oh,
and
yes.
describing in the
I
because
know, right?
this is a crock-headed being and if you know in my book book 3
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
there's
I read
a
it. That's
a,
good.
a part and a child is looking at him just like wanting to see but he wants a picture
Mm-hmm.
the child uh with him and he's trying to figure out how to
Yeah, I remember that scene.
it
Yeah, I remember that scene. The
just
Egyptian
made me think
gods
of that.
walking through the carnival in human form, not knowing how to behave, and
Pretending to look it was at Halloween time so we need to
that's
let
right.
people know
That's
that
right. Yeah,
so people would just think it was somebody in a costume
right.
but it was the real deal.
Yeah,
Giving a little away there on the book but
yeah. No, that's a really great scene. That's really pretty funny. Really funny. But in any case, after I had this
amazing.
feeling, all of a sudden my mind opened, like my consciousness
Nice.
opened, and it changed my perspective when I realized how I am projecting, I'm creating my own reality, how everything
That's it.
that I see around me is literally just another version of myself, because we're creating all of these images in our mind and we are
Now I have a
creating
question
them
on
with
that.
our own energy. Yeah, go ahead.
Do you find when you like you said, creating your own reality in that?
Yeah.
Now when you're around or feeling these advanced beings in that,
Mm-hmm.
the I get the sense anyways that everything is much more sharper and
Yes.
vivid
More
and the
clear.
colors are I mean it's just so much
Yeah.
more beautiful actually.
Yes, it
And it's
is.
because of their energy.
Exactly. Exactly. Everything's more clear, like sharper, like you said. The colors are brighter. And also the way we think, the way I think is much more clear. It seems like the noise kind of goes away or fades away. And it's a beautiful experience.
It is.
This whole thing with it's like I didn't know what was happening to me. It was so beautiful and I felt so much love towards all creation. It was amazing. It was
Right.
rapturous. In fact, I went inside. It lasted for about 30 minutes. I went inside to tell my husband, I don't know what's happening to me, but this is how I feel. And I gave him a hug, and I was so grateful for him being in my life. And he's looking at me like, okay, what's
Well,
wrong with
their
you?
form of love is a lot more expanded than the
Yeah.
humans'
Yes.
version of love. We have so conditional, even,
Yeah.
but you can really feel the difference. It's a real unconditional love. I know
Exactly.
because I had that experience with
Yeah.
Sobek.
It's
It was
beautiful.
just incredible.
It's beautiful, and I've heard other
It
people
really is.
given interviews who say the exact same thing. It's
It's
just,
euphoric.
yeah, it is. It's exactly what it is. It's euphoric. So, that lasted for about 30 minutes.
Wow.
Yeah, and but it changed me. I don't have that understanding, excuse me, anymore. It faded away, but I remember how that felt.
Right.
So, that definitely left a mark on how I see things. The other time that I saw Chica in an intense encounter was, what did I do with his drawing? It's not up here. Let me see. Was when I was just, sitting in my car waiting for my son to get out of school, and then all of a sudden, Chica pops into my head, just out of the blue. And let me see, there he is. Okay, now you can see him too. All right.
Yeah.
And so this is the sketch, and this time is, it's colored.
Such
It
beauty.
just vibrates like him.
Oh,
But anyway, I'm sitting
you got
in my
amazing
car.
talent.
Oh, you know what?
You really do.
It was, like I said, it was gifted to me after that C5. For sure. For sure. Because I was drawing stick figures before this. And for me to
trust
draw
me.
that, it's pretty amazing.
A 5-year-old could draw better than I could. People would probably pay me to not draw. It's shameful, my drawing.
Yeah. Well, I have my gifts. I can't do telemetry or psychometry like you. I can't, you pick up objects and you know so many things about who owned it, what it's about the person. It's pretty fascinating. So, yeah, it's pretty interesting. But in this one day when, like I said, I was sitting in my car listening to music, just minding my own business, he showed up. And again, whenever he shows up, there's this overwhelming feeling of being loved and cherished and just being precious. Like he looks at me as like a really, really most precious thing. And so I'm enjoying myself, experiencing these emotions and his company. And then he sort of opens up his chest, and there is this gold spiral that reminded me of that other mantis being that I drew, the medicine teacher one that I showed you earlier, where he had this gold spiral in his chest. Well, Chica had the same thing. And it was the most irresistible thing. It was like liquid gold love is the best way that I can describe it. And I got drawn into it. My mind, my consciousness got drawn into it. And I had the most intimate, profound experience I have ever had with anybody, okay? Because our energies blended. And we were still individuals, but at the same time, we were blended. And there was
it's pretty incredible.
Holy cow! This
I had that with Sobek.
Wow. Yeah, so you know what I'm talking
had that
about.
Happen. It's mind blowing.
Oh, I know.
It really is.
I don't even know how long it lasted. Okay, I have no idea. I know I was still in the car when the bell rang for my kid to get out. But what was really unusual, it seemed that as our energies were blending, there were two other beings, consciousnesses, energy packets, I don't know what to say, that emerged from that blending. Now, with my frame of reference, okay, and conditioning, I would call that offspring. I don't really know what it was, but if I have two hybrid mantis children out there...
mine don't involve any offspring. I didn't have it like that. I just had that euphoric feeling.
I asked him, why did you do that? Why did you want to do that with me, of all people? And he told me that I have lovely energy.
Nice.
And I was like, oh, that was so cute. Anyway, I'm getting to my last encounter with... I don't have a drawing of this one, but I've told you about him. In fact, this was very recent. We were thinking about what to name our show. And we were passing around ideas for titles, and I noticed that I became very insistent on specific things that had to be included. The symbols that had to be included in the imagery, the title, and I'm like, what's going on? I'm normally not this rigid. And so...
Well, I had to put in that sister soul thing because I feel like...
Yeah, no, that was really cool.
So that was my little...
That was really cool. So I'm like, what's going on? I was like, I'm not myself. What's happening? It's like I'm having a psychotic episode or something. And then suddenly this being showed up. It was a young mantis, and eventually I got that his name was Lucy, Luci, which is exactly how my mother spells her name.
Wow.
Okay. In any case, he pulled back and he apologized profusely. I mean, this was all telepathic. There were no words.
That's interesting.
So concerned for my well-being, because he said he didn't realize he was coming on so strong. And he backed away, and like I said, he was so sorry. And at that point, I realized that I have never heard anyone have an experience with an infant mantis being. And after meditating on this for a while, and after reconnecting with Lucy, what I realized is that they really when they're young, they learn how to regulate their energy so that they don't overwhelm, whoever they're interacting with. It's not just humans, there are other beings, races that they interact with. So they have to, be very conscious and careful about their energy. And this takes practice. As a child, they can interact with mantis beings because, obviously they can tolerate it. But even as children, they have this enormous, incredible psychic ability. And they can overpower whoever they interact with. And I realized as well that that's the mechanism that is being used by beings who don't have our best interests at heart in order to manipulate us, okay? And just as an example, I know there are others, but the Dracos, I've heard a number of interviews that they have these incredible psychic abilities where they will move your body for you, whether you like it or not. Or,
Now, do you think because I always say there's good and bad in every races, and I kind of mix up the reptilian. I always forget about Dracos.
Yeah.
Do you think all Dracos are just the dark reptilian, or?
Yeah, all I've heard about Dracos were negative stories, and I have my theory that the good Dracos are on their home planet enjoying life. They don't have to come over here and take over. It's just
so are the Dracos? I need to know this. I hope you don't mind me asking this, but because I don't really know. I don't really know much about the Dracos. So are they a branch off from the reptilians, or are they higher than the I mean, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, they are reptilians, but under the umbrella of reptilians, there are those who have, there's a distinction between those who have hips like dinosaurs did, like T-Rex, like birds, the hips. And there's another type of reptilian that, again, their hips are different. They're more like lizards that they walk on their four legs. And so there are different types of reptilians. The Draco is just like one specific race of reptilians. So so they can be good or bad, the same. Yeah. And there are good Dracos, I'm sure. Nobody seems to have met any, or at least they're not talking about them.
Well, by the way, I remembered the name later on when I said, remember when we said that don't be fooled by just because if a being looks beautiful doesn't mean they have good heart. Well, you know how we hear always about the reptilian, they're all bad and all that. I don't like that because that's a stereotype, because there are good ones out there.
I agree.
But it's the same thing. People assume that it's the Nordics. I couldn't think of the Nordics that have and I've always heard, they're so good and that. But then I saw some comments from people that have encountered very arrogant, egotistical, spit on the humans because they're ugly. We're perfect looking, and look at them, they're beneath. Very vain.
I think they probably come across that way because of their energy, and it could be that our conditioning perceives that type of posture, as arrogant. They are, the way that I understand it is they are very sure of themselves. There is no self-doubt.
Well,
they come across as very self-assured. And
it's just that I don't think I can see where maybe there are the good ones,
yeah,
but I also think that some of them might be full of themselves and think they're superior and look down, really down on us because, like I said, good and bad. So,
yeah, yeah. I really think that we have to be very careful. I don't know. I've never heard about, ETs, spitting on humans or things like that. But I'm
well, not
sure.
spitting, but you know what I mean. That I mean metaphorically
Oh, I see.
as a
Okay.
way of looking down, not spitting.
Okay. Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
In the
Feeling they're
same way,
superior.
that we are afraid of things that are not going to harm us because of our conditioning can also contribute to us feeling like they are putting us down when in reality they're not.
Oh yeah.
Uh,
Yeah, definitely. I just meant that just because something is beautiful
oh,
doesn't
yes,
necessarily mean that they're going to have your best interest or care
that's true.
about you.
That's true.
That's all I meant
Yeah,
because a lot of people think, well, all reptilians are bad and all Nordics are good.
yeah.
And I don't buy that. I think that just like with people, you have good people and you have people who are not so good.
Yeah, it's a matter of individuals. Overall, I
Right.
think every single race overall, based on my
Right.
personal experiences, overall there are no, I think, whatchamacallit, intentionally malevolent beings that are built, that are created to be intentionally malevolent, unless they're specifically cloned and, genetically engineered to be in a war or whatever. And
Right.
there are beings like that, but that's not really a true race in a sense. It's
Right.
being
I
created
agree.
through genetic engineering and manipulation. So we actually are running out of time because we're like 1 minute past the hour. So we
Okay.
got to wrap it up. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed my stories. I did a lot of the talking. I'm glad I had some water over here. My mouth ran dry.
It was your turn to do some talking. I've had a lot where I've been talk, so it's
Yeah,
good to see yours,
but
you
it's
know?
it's good that we take turns, because
Yeah.
we each have our own stories, and it's kind of fun to
Yeah.
talk about the experiences. And I suspect there are other people out there who have experiences with mantis beings. There aren't, as far as the mainstream media, that concept, the idea of a mantis being doesn't even exist.
Oh, yeah.
And so people who are perhaps just beginning to discover this other reality where ETs are part of our daily experience, maybe don't know what's going on.
Well, a
And
prime
so,
example is Dark Skies. I know we're at the last minute here,
yeah,
but that movie Dark Skies, and I remember the guy mentioning, oh, of course we know about the Greys, and there was like three races he mentioned,
yeah,
and he said the reptilians, although I don't know how true that one is. And I thought, isn't that funny that
yeah.
was, you know what I mean? I say
Interesting.
whenever you hear something like that, you better
Interesting.
believe that's to cover up.
Interesting. That's
I
very
thought, wow,
interesting.
why is he trying to put the doubt in this movie, in
Yeah.
this,
Oh, it's all a psyop. The whole
yeah,
thing is a psyop. Anyway, we're going to wrap it up
yep,
and we will see you guys next time. Bye. Take care.
bye,
Bye-bye.
bye.
Bye.